the news. President Biden said on Friday that Russia would pay, quote, a severe price if they use chemical weapons in Ukraine, a severe price, or as it's now known, premium. President Biden spoke on Friday with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for nearly 50 minutes. Zelensky asked for more sanctions against Russia, like maybe call Putin and keep him on the phone for 50 minutes. The head of Russia's National Guard said yesterday that the invasion of Ukraine has been slower than expected. Oh, interesting. I wonder what his replacement will say. Things are right on track. President Biden on Friday urged House Democrats to talk up the party's accomplishments going into midterm elections. Said Democrats, we got Pelosi's lectern back? United Airlines announced last week that employees who were placed on unpaid leave for refusing to get vaccinated can return to work later this month. So don't worry, your pilot might be unvaccinated, but at least he's also out of practice. A Florida man was arrested last week after he allegedly called the police and asked them to test the crystal meth he purchased to ensure it was authentic. Said the man, so is that a yes? I get one phone call. I got great news, Scooch. During a recent episode of the competition show The Masked Singer, a contestant accidentally knocked their mask off. Luckily, since it was The Masked Singer, the judges still didn't know who it was. Oh, it's the guy from The Thing. Actor Jussie Smollett was sentenced to 5 months in a Chicago jail last week for staging a hate crime. Here's what you do, Jussie. First day in the joint, walk up to the biggest guy in there and say, act like you're beating me up. It never doesn't work. According to a new poll, Seattle is the most desirable post-graduation city for college students. That story again, Gen Z just discovered Frasier on Peacock. That story again, our writer Karen just discovered Frasier. And finally, a man in Florida, by the way, had to separate our Florida jokes. We're just gonna act like this is the first one. But we all remember the crystal meth guy a few jokes back. That guy went first. When we ordered him, we're like, that one, I think we can put him early. And finally, a man in Florida was arrested last week after he was allegedly caught masturbating in a Miami Beach Starbucks. Employees suspected the man was unhinged the moment he ordered a Starbucks breakfast sandwich. In the end, it was a joke about Starbucks. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin announced yesterday that he opposes President Biden's nominee for the Federal Reserve Board before adding, but out of curiosity, who is it? The White House said yesterday that National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan had a 7-hour conversation with a top Chinese diplomat in Rome. I hate to be the one to tell you this, but 7 hours is a breakup talk. No one's ever said, well, my girlfriend and I were up talking all night, and she loves the way I load the dishwasher, and everything's going great. Tesla CEO Elon Musk yesterday challenged Russian President Vladimir Putin to, quote, single combat. Oh, come on, give me somebody to root for. This is like hearing the New York Yankees want to play against Duke. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley said recently that Senate Republicans will be fair and thorough during the upcoming confirmation hearings for Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson and added, quote, we're not going to get in the gutter like the Democrats did. Though, to be fair, they only got in the gutter because that's where Brett Kavanaugh passed out. So, Mayor Eric Adams joined the social media platform TikTok yesterday and said in his first video, quote, bing bong, New York City, your mayor is on TikTok. Let's get stuff done. Okay, being on TikTok is what we do when we don't want to get stuff done. That's like saying we got a lot of work to do. Somebody fire up Elden Ring. That's right, Eric Adams joined TikTok yesterday and said in his first video, bing bong, New York City. Oh boy. If Eric Adams was New York City's dad, we'd be asking him to drop us off 2 blocks away from school. Your friends will love Bing Bong, just no. According to a new study, trained ants may be effective in detecting cancer in humans, or at least more effective than others. It's cancer! Whatever you're typing in right now, it's cancer! Country legend Dolly Parton announced yesterday that she will remove her name from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ballot. But Dolly is not going to like this. They're replacing her on the ballot with Jolene. Head writer Alex Bays and I had a conversation right before the show. We had no idea how that joke was going to go, and I will say, of the many ways we thought, that wasn't one of them. And finally, in honor of St. Patrick's Day, Krispy Kreme will release 4 new flavors of donuts, though if you really want to honor the Irish, I think you do no flavor. I mean, to make a St. Patrick's Day joke that's not about alcoholism and is about bad cooking, I think that shows some real restraint. The Ukrainian president Volodymyr Zelensky delivered a virtual address to Congress this morning and received a standing ovation, making him the first comedian to actually deserve one. Zelensky also called on President Biden to be the leader of the world and said being the leader of the world means being the leader of peace, whereas being the leader of the world during the Trump years meant being Angela Merkel. Second gentleman Doug Emhoff tested positive yesterday for COVID-19. You guessed it, Fish concert. Former President Trump said in a new interview that he was surprised when Russian President Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. Really? Because he invaded Ukraine in 2014. When you're surprised by a thing that's already happened, that's a symptom. Well, you finally came to see your old grandpa. I was here yesterday. You're as rude as the fella from yesterday. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine signed a bill into law this week that allows gun owners to carry concealed weapons without a special permit. Well, what could possibly go off? President Biden signed a funding bill yesterday to keep the federal government running through September. It was either that or take a summer job. He would love that. The Senate passed a bill yesterday that would make daylight saving time permanent across the U.S. Finally, a rare victory for your oven clock. A man in the UK who was recently arrested for driving recklessly gave authorities a Legoland ID when they asked for documentation. They then charged him with resisting arrest when he refused to get out of the vehicle. I can't! I'm snapped in! Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin reportedly had a secret dinner last month at an Italian restaurant on Capitol Hill to help repair their strained relationship, and I think it might be working. According to a new survey, 55% of pet owners said that their dog experiencing separation anxiety is their biggest concern about returning to the office. Kids will be fine, though. They got each other. In a new interview, Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards said that he quit smoking cigarettes 2 years ago. And if you're wondering how bad his habit got, he's 39. And finally, according to a new study, older adults who walk between 6,000 and 8,000 steps a day are 50% less likely to die early and 50% more likely to be lost in a parking garage. Where is it, Harold? I don't know, Helen. The annual New York City St. Patrick's Day Parade was held today after being canceled for 2 years because of the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, they've had to update the buttons. President Biden is set to speak tomorrow with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and Biden is all set to remind China why they need us. Netflix announced yesterday that the political satire show Servant of the People, that stars Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, will return to the platform. And they're also taking down Putin's stand-up special. Yeah, so just broke up with girlfriend, feel bad. So I bought her a trip to Siberia. This guy knows what I'm talking about. President Biden announced yesterday that the U.S. will provide a new assistance package for Ukraine, which includes 800 anti-aircraft systems. We're giving them the best anti-aircraft system we have, drunk passengers. I don't know wearing a mask. A cargo ship named Ever Forward is stuck in Maryland's Chesapeake Bay after running aground on a sandbar, and they're really rolling the dice by sending the Never Sinks to save it. In a new interview with Bloomberg, a sanctioned Russian billionaire said that he now has to live on $3,300 per month. That's weird. They're making him teach high school? All right. Officials in Spain recently impounded a third super yacht that's believed to belong to a Russian oligarch, mostly because they're not very creative with their boat names. Republican Pennsylvania Senate hopeful Dr. Mehmet Oz said yesterday that he would renounce his dual Turkish citizenship if he gets elected. No word yet on when he'll renounce the title of doctor. Transportation officials in New York yesterday announced plans to raise the flat fee for a taxi between JFK Airport and Manhattan to $65. That's crazy. That's almost $15 an hour. We mathed them. We fully mathed them. That's on us. We didn't even give them pens and paper or anything. And finally, tomorrow is National Awkward Moments Day. This news first reported by the guy who was actually waving to the person behind you. And that was a monologue, everybody.